and gentlemen, the books is in. The books are in. Yep. They in. They're here.
Log in to KofiPaisaTV.com and get Spears of the Mossy Volume 1 by Kofi Paisa Research Team, from Spears the Pen Volume 2 by Kofi Paisa Research Team, Spiritual Combat Volume 3 by Kofi Paisa Research Team, One Night Before Bed by Any Harek Shun Calfunny, Kalawa's Trip to the Motherland by Kofi Paisa, From Cocaine to Consciousness by Any Harek Shun Calfunny, As I Learned, We All Learn by Kofi Paisa. Also, if you want fresh merch, go to our online store, Family Connect Apparel, and get all the brands. Also, get our 54 deck of quiz and educational cards available now on KofiPaisaTV.com.
The American Negro, the American Negro Academy, the first major Black American Learned Society, was founded March 5th, 1897 in Washington, D.C. The Constitution of the ANA defined it as an organization of authors, scholars, artists, and those distinguished in other walks of life, men of African descent, for the promotion of letters and science and art. This same document described the society's purpose as follows: A, to promote the publication of scholarly work. B, to aid youths of genius in the attainment of the higher culture at home or abroad. C, to gather into its archives valuable data and the works of Negro authors. D, to aid publications, the dissemination of the truth and the vindication of the Negro race from its vicious assaults. E, to publish, if possible, an annual design to raise the standard of intellectual endeavor among American Negroes. Excuse me. Although the chief concerns of the men who founded the ANA were to strengthen the intellectual life of their racial community, improve the quality of Black leadership, and ensure that henceforth arguments advanced by cultural despisers of their race were refuted or at the very least challenged, it was equally significant that the organization was established at a time when white Americans were creating hundreds of learned, professional, and ethic historical societies. The ANA's birth was also an expression of this general movement among educated members of the American middle class. From its establishment until its demise in 1928, the ANA claimed as members some of the most important leaders in the Black American community. Alexander Crummell, the president, was an Episcopal clergyman who held an A.B. degree from Queens College, Cambridge University. Other founders included Francis Gramicki, a Presbyterian clergy, Trained at Lincoln University and Princeton Theological Seminary. W.E.B. Du Bois, a professor of economics and history at Atlanta University. William Krogman, professor at the University of Clark University in Atlanta. You had William Scarborough, a scholarly classicist who was a faculty of Wilberforce University, and John W. Cromwell, a lawyer, politician, and former editor of the People's Advocate, a black newspaper published in Washington, D.C. between 1878 and 1884. Throughout its existence, the ANA attracted a number of the most intellectual, creative blacks in the United States. Some of the men associated with organizations who achieved their greatest prominence after the turn of the century were John Hope, president of Morehouse College and later Atlanta University; Allen L. Locke, a writer, critic, and key figure in the Harlem Renaissance; Carter G. Woodson, the historian; James Weldon Johnson, a poet, writer, and civil rights leader. Relatively speaking, though only a handful of educated blacks were ever members of the ANA, there were several reasons for this. The ANA was a selective organization to which interest was controlled by the membership. Its activities and goals appealed mainly to a small group of blacks who sought to function as intellectuals and who believed that the results of their efforts were crucial to the development and defense of their racial group. It experienced continuous difficulties in realizing its goals, and it never enjoyed the support of Booker T. Washington, the powerful principal of Tuskegee Institute, who for over half the life of the organization was the dominant figure in the black community. Between 1897 and 1942, the American Negro Academy published 22 occasionally papers on subjects related to the culture, history, religion, civil and social rights, and the social institution of Black Americans. While the quality of papers varied, all of them helped to illuminate the many ways in which, during the first quarter of the 20th century, an important segment of the small community of educated American blacks attempted to intellectually define their people, justify their own existence, and challenge the ideas, habits, attitudes, and legal prescriptions that seemed to be locking their race permanently into an inferior state. Throughout its existence, the ANA was preoccupied with survival. As a result, its officers and members were forced to put as much energy into keeping the organization alive as they did into conducting its programs. And yet the society survived for 31 years, functioning as a setting in which members and friends shared their intellectual and scholarly work with each other and engaged in critical reflection on it. Through annual meetings, occasional papers, exhibits, and the public interest they generated, the American Negro Academy was able here and there to initiate dialogues in both the Black and white communities that were important contributions to a growing discussion in the United States, Africa, and Europe about race and the relationship between Blacks and whites, to introduce the concerns and opinions of educated Blacks into quarters where previously they had been ignored or gone unnoticed, and to encourage the growing pride among Blacks in their culture and history. For these reasons, the story of the American Negro Academy has an important place in the larger history of efforts by educated Blacks in the early 20th century to use their skills and abilities as a means of both leading and protecting their people, and as a weapon to secure equality and destroy racism. At its birth, the American Negro Academy was held by Blacks on 3 continents as welcome step forward in the efforts of their own race to liberate itself from the crippling legacy of slavery and the problems created by the hostilities of their prejudiced whites. Through its work, the American Negro Academy proved this to be an accurate prediction. It was both a sustainer and perpetuator of the Black protest traditions in an age of accommodation and prescriptions. By functioning as a source of affirmation and encouragement for an important segment of the Black intellectual, and as a setting in which they would seek to understand the meaning of the Black American experience, it was a model for other and sometimes more successful Black organizations founded after 1897, which engaged in similar work or attempted to realize that the ANAs had found unattainable. Now, by strengthening and adding the intellectual autonomy and insight of those Blacks associated with it, The American Negro Academy helped to prepare them for the more honest, informed dialogue with each other, with blacks outside the society and other parts of the world, and when they would listen with whites. I am deeply in debt to Professor John Hope Franklin for encouraging my interest in the American Negro Academy and for the invaluable assistance in helping me gain access to previously unsearched material on the organization. He has been a vigorous and insightful critic as well as a wise friend and counselor. For both forms of support, I am grateful than I can ever express. Man, how y'all doing today? That is the introduction from Mr. Moss's book, The American Negro Academy. And I just want to elaborate a little bit more on that opening introduction. Shortly, I'm not going to be too long, but shortly as we begin our work days or in the middle of our work days and headed toward our lunch break or what have we. So I'm going to share my screen and I just want to build a little bit more onto the aspirations. Now, you heard me mention these publications and numbering. You heard me mention the reason why for the publications and numbering. So what we're going to do is I'm going to try to do my best job at expanding this out where y'all can see it. You should be able to see it a little bit now. And this is occasional paper number 1, a review of Hoffman's Race Traits and Tendencies of the American Negro by Kelly Miller. At the time, this was 25 cents. All right. So Kelly Miller was a contributor to the actual American Negro Academy and wrote in the publications, as you can see from the heading. But we're going to take a look at a few more documents here. And I'm going to see if I can get here. So let me get back into it. And let's see what the deal is. I don't know why I keep jumping me in and out of the actual document, though. That's the only issue that I have. Let me do it like this. All right. So as it states here, a review of Hoffman's Race Traits and Tendencies of the American Negro. In August 1896, there was published under the auspices of the American Economic Association a work entitled Race Traits and Tendencies of the American Negro by Frederick L. Hoffman as statistician to the Prudential Insurance Company of America. This work presents by far the most thorough and incomprehensive treatment of the Negro problem from a statistical standpoint, which has yet appeared. In fact, it may be regarded as the most important utterance on the subject since the publication of Uncle Tom's Cabin, for the interest which the famous novel arose in the domain of sentiment and generous feelings. The present work seems destined to awaken in the field of science and exact inquiry. Mr. Hoffman has spent 10 years in painful and laborious investigation of the subject, during which time he has been in touch with his fullest sources of information and has had the advice and assistance of the highest living authorities in statistics and social science. Let's move on a little bit forward. Yeah, it's going to keep on blurting out. All right, so just to get beyond the introduction, a little bit about this. If you haven't seen this, I did not put this link in the description. I just really didn't want to elaborate too much on Hoffman's work, but it's available to us to actually view this. It says here, the main conclusion of the work is that the Negro race in America is deteriorating physically and morally in such manner as to point to ulterior extinction, and that this decline is due to race traits rather than to conditions and circumstances of life. Now it says, not only do we find this conclusion expressly set forth in connection with every chapter, but it is also easily discernible in footnotes and quotations in the general drift of cited references and between the lines. In order to give the clearest possible statement of the author's position, his own words will be used. The conditions of life, therefore, would seem to be of less importance than race and heredity. He's in the next one, he says, it is not the conditions of life, but in the race traits and the tendencies that we find the cause of the excessive mortality. For the root of the evil lies in the fact of an immense amount of uh, immorality, which is a race trait. A combination of these traits and tendencies must be in the end cause the extension of the race. It is not the conditions of life, but in race and heredity that we find the explanation. The mixture of the African with the white race has been shown to have seriously affected the longevity of the former and left as inheritance to future generations the poison of scrofula, tuberculosis, and most of all, syphilis. If the reader will keep constantly in mind the key suggested by these quotes, he will pursue the book itself as well as the review with great ease and facility. My bad. So there's a lot that we need to know about the writers at this time in their era and what they're writing for or against. This article is 39 pages long. I am going to drop it in the chat. And for people who want to expound on what's going on with that time and why they're writing, you'll have actual access to that. Now, let me go back to the initial, because this is one of many publications that we can find. Well, I just can't get back to the homepage. Written by the American Negro Academy. All right. Book 2. Well, number 1 papers is all this says Hoffman's race trait. So it just goes on to elaborate on all of that. And I just wanted to give you some insight on dealing with that. And then, as you can see, goes on from there. And they're always doing that. Now, some other things that I actually wanted to mention. You see this in my article about the organized March 5th, 1897. The list of memberships that are actually here. And this list continues to grow. As you would see, like people like Schomburg and stuff like that start to appear later on down the line as the academy grew. I did want to show you this. They're selling these things now, but this is occasional paper number 7, which is called Right of the Scoful or the Martyrs of 1822 by Mr. Gramike, right, who is a member, right? And it says in the description of this, if you can see this pretty well, it says, this is a sensitive biographic sketch on Denmark Vesey, the freed slave who in 1822 led an ill-fated slave rebellion in Charleston, South Carolina, written by a leading African-American intellectual, the son of a slave and her white owner, who became one of the first Black graduates of Harvard Law School, Boston attorney, American diplomat, and for 16 years, president of the American Negro Academy, the nation's preeminent Black intellectual society at the start of the 20th century. Called the voice of the talented 10th, the term coined by W.E.B. Du Bois, the scholars of the Academy, eschewing the Booker T. Washington philosophy that downplayed the academic achievement in higher education, published 22 occasional papers between 1897 and 1924, 7 written by Gramike himself. All the original Academy imprints are now scarce. They're selling this for like between $300 and $500. It's a rare slavery biography. So they can be found. Here we have the YMCA building meeting of the American Negro Academy held the 17th annual. This is just a briefing. You see this as well. At the time, sitting secretary was Cromwell. And then, of course, you can find this at Second Story Books, Sheltering with Books. They want $800 for this. But this is basically, let me zoom in so you can see. Right? This is American Negro Academy papers related to Black civil rights publication journals from 1890s to 1920s. And this is consistent of 16 titles. Show y'all the images. The Shame of America, or the Negro's case against the Republic. The challenge of the disenfranchised, a plea for the enforcement of the 15th Amendment, the disfranchisement of the Negro. Yeah. So it goes by and it just basically labels everything having to do with that. Kamiki talks about the Atlanta riot, Paul Cuffey Sherwood, Henry Washington, and the Association of the Study of the Negro Life and History. Most of the things that we have conversations about today have been written previously or mentioned previously by members of the American Negro Academy. Most people aren't aware of it or pay attention to it. It dawned on me the other day when I having a conversation with someone that they were saying that we're nothing like the talented 10. Although we would try to be like the talented 10th, they say we're nothing like the talented 10th. When I say me, I'm talking about the Massey Warrior Clan. I'm talking about the Kofi Pieside research team. Let me get off this real quick. That's what it was said in the chat room by our brother who said they're not impressed with what we're doing. We didn't do what we're doing, or we're not doing what we're doing, I should say, to impress anyone. We're doing what we're doing because we're fighting for the hearts and minds of our people. And we're trying to inspire the next generation to be not only just intellectual, but use the gift that has been given to us to advance themselves and take advantage of their opportunities where most people have dropped the ball. So when people say like things like, I'm not impressed with what y'all doing, or y'all are nothing like the talented 10th, or y'all think y'all the authority on the subject matter, or y'all always trying to correct somebody's information, or what's in your book, or why should I even do this or do that? You have to remember that the talented 10 face the same scrutiny by their peers and family members and friends or associates, just like we are. So when someone says the things that they actually have been saying lately, that's not a problem for me. We're not doing this to impress people. We are doing this because we made a decision in our hearts and our minds to advance our people forward. So we wanted to give them something, right, that they can use to move their household forward, educate their children, answer real life questions and problems that they have inside their homes. We didn't do this for likes because we don't get those. We don't do this for attention because, as you can see, we really don't have hundreds of people viewing our streams. But the hate that we're getting for trying to emulate and advance the talented 10's work, their efforts, and many others that came after them is ridiculous. We didn't say that we were always right. We don't act like we're right about everything. What we do as a research team and as family members is that we apply a rigorous methodology to answer research questions and advance scholarship. And we challenge other people to use those same standards when we're addressing certain topics in the community. And it's unfortunate that people who shared 20 or 30 of your Facebook posts in a 2-year span, that showed up in your chat rooms every time you went live, or commented on your videos or shared your videos and presentations as often as possible, would turn around and be the subject of scrutiny what they call scrutiny or what they call critique, but would only seemingly be dry hate. The same dry hate that Alexander Crummell faced, the same dry hate that W.E.B. Du Bois faced, the same dry hate that Carter G. Woodson faced, because they were the intellectuals, they were the black intellectuals, and people looked down upon them because they did work. They built relationships. Their work was on 3 continents. Kofi Paisai research team is on 2 continents. Now 3, because Fitz, as of Friday, the UK brothers and sisters will be able to get Spears of the Masi. They can get it now. Spears of the Masi, a historical survey of the minds of African warrior scholars, volume 4. They're able to get that now. Beautiful Lessons of Kamoyo, they're able to get that in the UK. And what SARS-CoV-2 taught me, they are going to be able to, on Friday, they're going to be able to get that in the UK. Fitz will be able to get access to that. Him and other brothers and sisters in the UK will be able to get that. So that'll give you 3 continents where we will have work. We're following in the footsteps of people who came before us who faced the same turmoil. We're not going to quit. You want us to entertain you, right? You want us to give you the laughs and the jokes and things of that nature. Some of us are just not built like that. Some of us take things a little bit more serious. Some of us, we're not entertainers by the stretch. We can have fun and joke and things of that nature, but sometimes we have to be the serious ones. Why? Because laughing and joking can only hide our pain. We're suffering right now. Did you know that? What do you mean, Sean? We're suffering. I'm doing okay. You're doing fine. But have you checked on your auntie, your great aunt? Have you checked on your grandmother, your great grandmother? What about your great uncle, your grandfather? What about the things that they're going through? What about what this pandemic has done to them emotionally and mentally, because it has shut them out? They're getting older now. They can't do some of the things that they used to do. They don't know half their damn family members because they haven't seen them. And yes, this is an educational channel. This isn't the entertainment platform. And Kofi Paisai research team is not an entertainment platform. Y'all have platforms to be entertained on. This is neither here nor there. We are trying to get Black people out of a funk. We are 60 years behind our last most intellectual mindsets. Not really 60 years. I'm exaggerating there, but you have to think about it. When was the last time that a Dr. Ben, Dr. Clark, John G. Jackson, Chancellor Williams, and the likes were actually physically at their best? They weren't. They weren't over the last 20-something years. But when they were heavily active in doing what they needed to do, they were doing what they needed to do. But that wasn't enough because they didn't have the tools that they needed to advance scholarship in a manner that needed to be done. But we do today. So why would we not advance the information? See, when you look at the American Negro Academy, right? And I'm telling y'all, they had a rise, they had a peak, and they had a demise. Their demise was due to the lack of funding and support that they got from people. So they couldn't dedicate themselves and their times to the necessary need to continue the journey, continue the fight until they were able to pass the baton. It's the same thing with Dr. Ben, Dr. Clark. Some people say some of them died broke. My whole thing is that if you don't believe in what we're doing, why do you even pay attention to us? If you don't believe in what we're doing, why even bother giving us your time? If you're just here to scrutinize us, I could totally understand that. Go ahead. Scrutinize us. But because we don't do things your way doesn't necessarily mean we're doing them the wrong way. It's just you feel a certain way about how you feel about things and the way that they should go. That's personal. Chavis calls it a lie. He says, man, people just be dry hating. And more important is because of people like me. Y'all don't like me, and that's fine. I'm not to be liked. I don't want followers. I'm just gonna kick the truth, or I'm gonna hold you accountable to some information, or I'm gonna check you on some information that you kicking that seems to be uh, irrational, and then you gonna just be in your feelings, and that's absolutely fine with me. You might not be fine with it, but it's fine with me because I'm not emotionally attached to it. I'm not married to it. I'm not married to it. I'm not. You might be married to it, but I'm not. I'm scientific with it. And I think that's part of the problem here is that we're trying to emulate our greatest minds in African American history, and inside of that, their inspirations and aspirations were centered around not being written out of history, fighting against racism, white supremacy, and we got a section of people that want to defy that unintelligently, want to defy that. But at the same time, it's healthy, right? It's intellectual sparring in some instances, but I just feel like some people don't even need to be a part of the conversation. But that's neither here nor there. The problem is, in order to advance it, you gotta face scrutiny on both sides of the argument in order to hash out an argument and come to a proper conclusion to advance people. If that's what you're in it for. But those are resemblances to what the American Negro Academy stood for. Those things, scholarship, hashing out the differences, having all the evidence on the table, breaking it down layer by layer until we can come to an honest conclusion, not a faulty hypothesis, arguing it as if it's a conclusion. Now, peep this. The idea of establishing a national Black cultural organization was first proposed in 1873 when delegates attending the National Equal Rights Convention passed a resolution urging the formation of the Black Historical Society. Their resolution produced no results, though the various literary and debating societies beginning to flourish in the Black community heard papers on historical themes, observed the births and deaths of Black heroes and white friends, and in other ways sought to focus their members, the culture and history of their race. In 1883, the Black historian George Washington Williams issued another call for the formation of a Black historical society. Despite his stature as an intellectual and political figure in the Black community, nothing came of his suggestion. Though some Black historical societies were founded after 1885, like the American Negro Historical Philadelphia, and all of them had small local memberships and were more antiquarian societies than intellectual, critical, scholarly groups. However, in the early 1890s, the increasingly negative assessments by educated whites of Blacks and their struggles, coupled with widespread efforts by Blacks to expand institutional base of their community, caused several Black intellectuals to begin discussing the need for a new and different kind of Black literary and cultural society. See, this is where we are. This is where the rubber meets the road. We're at that point today in our society where we need a new, where we need to reform. We need to build. We need to create. See this online thing? this YouTube thing right, or whatever the case may be, we need a new. It's time for the rise of the intellectual to reemerge, to educate, lead, and bring back the hearts and minds of the people that we lost. So I'm gonna continue and then I'm gonna close. In the autumn or winter of 1893, Richard R. Wright of Savannah suggested to his friend William H. Krogman of Atlanta that they take the lead in bringing together a group of Black scholars and thinkers to establish a national society whose main work would be to formulate strategies for solving the problems of their people and to respond to the attacks of white intellectuals. Sheffrin, you listening? In the autumn or winter of 1893, Wright of Savannah suggested to his friend William Krogman of Atlanta that they take the lead in bringing together a group of Black scholars and thinkers to establish a national society whose main work would be to formulate strategies for solving the problems of their people and to respond to the attacks of white intellectuals. Wright and Krogman, who were both teachers in small Southern Black schools, had been classmates at Atlanta University, where they received their bachelor's and master's degrees in the same years. Wright had taught in high school in Georgia after finishing college in 1891, accepted appointment at the President of the State Industrial College near Savannah. He was an ambitious man. He was an active figure in his profession as well as in Georgia state politics. He was born in St. Martin, British West Indies. The scholar Krogman was a professor at the Greek and the Latin at Clark University, a Northern Methodist college in Atlanta. Krogman liked the idea and shared it with several persons whom he felt would be both interested and suitable potential members. One of the people he attempted to interest was Francis James Grimke, pastor of the 15th Street Presbyterian Church in Washington, D.C. He had a similar temperament to Krogman. Grimke was a disciplined, astute man who had began to receive wide recognition of his force and sophistication in his sermons and his qualities as a pastor. He was the son of a former slave, wealthy South Carolina planter. Grimke was also a publicly acknowledged nephew of two abolitionist sisters, Angelina and Sarah Grimke. A graduate of Lincoln University in Pennsylvania and Princeton, a theological seminary. He held pastorates in Florida and Washington. Grimke was well accomplished. But I want you to think about what they said. Richard Wright and Krogman decided to take the lead to establish a national society whose main work would be to formulate strategies for solving the problems of their people and to respond against the attacks of white intellectuals. What up, Jody? I really don't need to say much more because when you look at the reason for the academy being put together, is right there. It's for the people and to fight against. You heard the Amara Squad say that a long time ago. I don't know if they knew it at the time, but they know it now. That, man, we trying to stand on the shoulders of the ancestors and move things forward. This is not an attack on the ancestors. Stop being married to information, because the more data collected, the more opportune chances will come that you're gonna have to move the needle off that information or wherever you standing at. But if the information doesn't move after the collection has been out and disseminated through, for those on the opposing side, will have to yield their position or their feelings and accept the evidence as it sits. So we, the Kofi Paisai research team and the Masi and all the families, we, whether you like me or not, but we have a bigger job to do. And that is not only to put our greatest minds together, but it is also to use those minds to move our people forward, because it's for the people. And then it is to correct the misinformation and the disinformation and the pseudoscience that has captured the hardened minds of our people that are trapped in ignorance. He says, even chef in the spirit. Hallelujah. That boy crazy. But we have to understand that the more you hate us, the more we're going to continue to accomplish things. When we invited you, you didn't want to sit at the table with us to even discern or understand us or try to help us move our people forward. Because we want to be like the talented tenth. Who do you want us to be like? You say you ain't nothing near the talented tenth. We're only aspiring to be like the talented tenth, but we're doing very similar things that they did, except for we're not solely relying on communities or other people to fund the things that we have going on. Our advancement is not hinged on people sending us cash apps, donations, and things of that nature. It would be great, but it's not. We actually all earn our livings, and we actually all invest those earnings into projects that we actually do. So some people hate. They hated the American Negro Academy. They hated parts of the Harlem Renaissance. They hated Dr. Ben. They hated Dr. Clark. They hated Chancellor Williams. They hate Asar Imhotep. And I told y'all by the end of 2021, they gonna hate me. And because they hate me, they dislike the Mossy. They don't tune in to entertain. They dislike Kofi Pasi research team. They blame Kofi for things. Kofi just gonna say Sean. Where you have a problem with Sean, what they got to do with the other members in the group. And then it's a whole excuse made on why you can't support the advancement of scholarship from either group and our works, our efforts. To hell with how I say certain things or challenge certain things or correct certain people. That doesn't even matter, because if we didn't correct anyone, then everyone would run amok. We'll be right back into 15 years ago. We'll be right back with more Bobby Hemmett's. We'll be right back with more Phil Valentine's telling you to paint your house with lead to fight COVID. We'll be I'm here, just so y'all know. Hey, he said they put a spell on it. But nah, man, in closing, man, I just wanted to just let y'all know, man, like we ain't going nowhere. We're dealing with the same things that the talented tent dealt with. We're dealing with the same thing that the American Negro Academy dealt with. And it was StreamYard that actually reset or whatever. But you can hate us all you want, man. You can hate us all you want. Nothing to ever change. So I appreciate everybody tuning in. I'm about to slide out. It's time for me to get to work. Y'all enjoy y'all evening. Appreciate the opportunity for the listening audiences. Please like the show, share the show. Go get Spill Masters Volume 4. Go get that. Go ahead and pick up your copy of What SARS-CoV-2 Taught Me. The links are in the description. We appreciate your support. Anyone who purchased the book in the last 24 hours, it has been sent out. You should check your email for updates on your tracking number as they sit. We have literally, been on top of that. As soon as you order, I've been getting it out. If it ain't me, Kofi, we getting the books out as quickly as possible. All you have to do is just wait till they come in the mail. There's the link to the books in the description. We do appreciate those of you who are subscribed to the channel, that do tune into the bills, who are supporting the things that we have going on, who don't have a problem with the way that we educate over here, and that continue to come back. So, we appreciate everybody, man. It is what it is. Y'all enjoy the rest of your day. You might see us back later on.